Thanks for tuning in to the Rachel Hamm Show, where you'll find the inspiration, encouragement, and tools you've been craving. Be sure to hit subscribe and give this video a quick like. Now, here's Rachel.
Hi, this is the Rachel Hamm Show. I'm Rachel Hamm. This actually is George sitting right back here today. Nikki's down by my feet. They swapped spots today. I'm not sure why. I put Nikki up there. She loves to be on camera. But for whatever reason, today she hopped down and George hopped up in her place. So let's hope he stays laying down and being a good boy. Because, yeah, still very much acting like a puppy, in case you were wondering. Looking forward to him maturing. And I'm looking forward to him not destroying my stuff anymore. If you have any tips on how to train a French bulldog, please let me know, because my goodness, I'm really tired of his issues. He's so cute and sweet and like cuddly, but oh my gosh, he's a naughty boy. So today I have someone on that I am so excited because I had heard his testimony and it was so powerful. I asked if he would come on and share it with you. And he said yes, which is exciting. So I'll explain a little bit about how I met him. So he is the manager of the tasting room at Allegretto Vineyards in Paso Robles, California. And that's only about an hour and 45 minutes away from us. And so my husband and I had gone over for the day to just take a little break from our town and have a little time together. And we were at Allegretto because they have amazing wine. It's so good. It's my favorite personally. And so we were there. We'd been there quite a few times, and we had met Rory. That's who I'm going to be interviewing today, Rorylongley. We had met him a couple of times, but we'd never really visited with him. So this one day, I saw that he had a bracelet on, and it looked like it was a scripture. So I said, "Hey, Rory, what is that? What does that say on your bracelet?" And he said, "It says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And it reminds me of what God has done for me. Can I share a testimony with you of something God has done for me?" And I said, "Absolutely, yes." One of my favorite things to do is to hear testimonies of things that God has done in people's lives. So I was very encouraged and excited to hear. And he pulled up a chair and he sat and visited with us and shared a beautiful, beautiful testimony. And it was actually two testimonies. So he's going to share both of them today. And I just left the conversation feeling so filled with faith and encouragement and hope. And I knew that I wanted to bring that same thing to you. And there's two specific subjects of the testimony. The first one really is a testimony about his life. He's going to share about his life, but about estrangement with his mom and how they have reconciled. And I know that after I had shared on here about what was happening with our son, I think I received more messages than I've ever received from any show about all of the different people who are in the same situation, who have a child who's estranged, have a prodigal that they are praying for, that they are hurting for. And so I wanted him to share his testimony because it is so full of hope for people who have estrangement. But even if you don't have a child that's estranged, you're going to find it encouraging because it's just full of encouraging God things. So that's the first testimony. The second testimony is regarding finances. And again, I know that there are so many people, right, that we're dealing with inflation. We're dealing with just struggles financially. It's like a lot of people are struggling to just make ends meet. And so I wanted him to share the financial testimony as well, because I know that both of them are going to encourage you. And again, even if you're not struggling with either of those areas, you're still going to find these testimonies to be encouraging. And isn't it just wonderful to hear someone just kind of boast in the Lord, talk about what the Lord has done for them? It just fills you up with hope and faith and encourages your soul. And so if you are listening, as you listen today, and you think, okay, Rory is great. I love his testimony. I want him to come share with my youth group or my church or go give his testimony at my event. I asked him, because I told him, I said, I really think you should be a public speaker. Like, I really kind of see that for him. He's just a great guy in lots of ways. But he's articulate. He has such a great work ethic. He works so hard, does so good with customer service, and such a people person. And I don't know, I really see him as being a public speaker. And so I said, hey, if people watch today's show and they love your testimony and they want you to come speak at their event, would you be willing to do that? Have you ever done that before? And he said that he absolutely would love to come speak at people's event or even just like for your youth group or whatever. And he said he would love to. And so I am going to put his email address in the description box below this video so that if, as you listen today, you think you want to reach out to him to come speak or for some other reason, that you can do that. So his email is going to be in the description box. And I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's go ahead and bring Rorylongley on now so that he can tell you about what the Lord has done in his life. Be encouraged. Rory, thank you so much for being willing to join me today and to share your story about what God has done because it was highly encouraging to me. And I know that it's going to be highly encouraging to everyone that's watching. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning. And why don't you share a little bit about what it was like in your home growing up and what ultimately led you to make the decision to leave? So if you can give us a little background, that would be great.
Yeah. I grew up in a super small town, 350 people. It's called San Bernardino. It's about 30 minutes north of Paso Robles. And everybody knew everybody. But the pros and the cons of everything, your small town, there's no really rules. Everybody knows everybody. So treat like family, do whatever you want. And I'm the oldest of three. So I have two younger sisters. It was my mom and then stepdads, and I didn't know my dad, never met him, and I tracked him down later in life to kind of find out who he was, and didn't have the best results there, and we can talk about that. And my mom ultimately kind of was all over the place and not the best role model or the best influence, and there was drugs and alcohol and partying and everything running around all at the same time. So as a young kid, I stepped into an adult role really young and wanted to make sure that my two sisters were taken care of and they had the things they needed and they got to go to prom and they got to do all these fun things in life that I ultimately knew at that age I wasn't going to be able to do.
How much younger
And
are they than you?
only a year. So my middle sister is 36 and then my youngest sister's 35, 34,
And you're how
turning
old?
34. And I'm 37.
Okay. So
So
you're pretty close together. So it's not like you were
yeah,
like 8 years older and it was kind of natural for you to
sure.
father them
No, we
little. You were, yeah.
no, I was a year older than my middle sister and but I was dad, by 7 years old, 8 years old, like running around doing stuff. And but I believe that God prepares you for battles early in life. He gives you kind of this armor to help other people later on. And I struggled with that when I was young. I didn't really understand what the journey was and what God did for me and where ultimately I would end up in my own life. Um, Disconnecting from God and then reconnecting back to Him later in life and then being able to see those messages. As we talked and said before, like sometimes God's plan is not your plan. And
Well, and certainly
I
I
stand,
think like God didn't the hard things in your childhood. I would believe that God redeems those things and uses those things always for
yeah,
our good, but he doesn't cause those things.
yeah,
Like the enemy and
no,
our own self-will and your mom's choices set up a stage for there to be a hard childhood, but then God in his infinite sweetness and goodness and how he promises us that he will use all things together for the good of those who
yep,
love him and are called according to his purpose. So he redeems them. But
yeah,
I don't even want to separate that out because I don't think God causes
no, no, no. I'm not saying He caused
those. Yeah,
anything in that aspect,
he uses
but
it.
you don't realize the messages that He sends as blessings until sometimes later
Yeah.
in life as you realize like what you went through, as traumatic as it was from the enemy, it was also a blessing on His side because He's going to take whatever trauma, pain, things you went through and turn them into strengths, even though they don't feel like it in the moment.
Yeah.
And you see that a lot with other victims of different crimes, sexual assault, things like that. Like they ultimately turn their life around and those things become strengths for them.
That's my
Um,
story.
and ultimately that played into a lot of stuff in my life. So as a young kid, I had multiple stepdads. My mom was married multiple times
Mhm.
and never really settled down. We moved all over the place. We've lived in Missouri, Gonzales, Salinas, Santa Maria, Paso, San Ardo, 29 Palms, Palm Springs, like all over the place.
Mhm.
And watching all those things take place and watching my sisters live the life they did, I ultimately decided I didn't want to grow up like that, and I needed to get out and do something.
And there
And
was
my
some
one outlet
abuse
felt,
with a stepdad,
yeah, some
some
physical
abuse.
abuse, yeah, some physical abuse, some sexual abuse. I mean, not a lot of people can, stand by and watch what happens and not have it affect them the way they did. And I definitely struggled at the beginning, but I was forced to watch both my sisters get sexually assaulted at one time and kind of told like, you're not strong enough, you're not strong enough. And I didn't have a strong spiritual sense then. Which if I did, I would have realized like I am strong enough spiritually to be able to fight off these battles.
When you say
But
you
also
were told you weren't strong enough, do you mean your
to
stepdad?
protect.
Your
Yeah,
stepdad
like
told you, or you just thought that, or what?
no, like my stepdad's told me, like, you're not strong enough to protect your family. You're not strong enough to take care of your sisters. You're not strong enough to protect your mom from me.
Mm-hmm.
There was some evil out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I think you see it in all kids. They don't really see the evil. Like kids aren't born knowing that. They're taught that. And I think there's some people out there that work for the devil. Like he wants the same relationship with you that God wants with you. So he's doing all the things he can on his side to kind of influence people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think being told I wasn't strong enough and I wasn't able to protect them was his way of trying to beat me mentally. But deep down, spiritually, God was telling me, like, you will be strong enough one day and you'll be the protector and the provider and the guide. You just have to stand by and wait till it's your moment. And I went through that. And my outlet at that time was dance. So I was a little kid. I had a gentleman come into my school and teach us how to some dance and hip hop and ballroom. And I fell in love with it. That was like my outlet, like was just turn on music and go do whatever. And that kind of took me away from all the pain and everything that was going on at home and the distractions and the things I was going through. And later on, couple years, I was 5, 6 years old when that happened. I was in dance and doing those things. And by the time I was 10, this guy had been willing to take me out on summer camps and let me work with him, teaching kids and kind of get an idea. But I still had school and I still had 2 sisters to take care of. But as I got to that age and I started to struggle with myself mentally, and now I start to believe those words, the negatives and the devil had brought into my life of you're not good enough, you're not strong enough. By the time I was, 14, 15, I started to believe all that and really doubted myself. And the more struggles I saw at home, the more it built that doubt and that negative self-esteem. And I ultimately decided enough was enough. And I knew this guy's office was in Long Beach, and I jumped on a Greyhound. And
How old were you?
15, I was 15. I had just finished sophomore year of high school. I was getting ready to turn 16 in March. Going to or just finished my freshman year, got in towards my sophomore year, getting ready to turn 16. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't be around negativity. I can't see the drugs. I can't see the alcohol. I can't see the verbal abuse, the sexual abuse. Like, the life at home was there were so many good memories built around the bad memories that you didn't remember the good memories at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that, and my grandpa had passed away, and that was kind of like my hero. That was my savior. And when he passed, like that was the glue to everything, and it kind of just all came apart. And so I decided to take off. And I knew this guy's house was in Long Beach and where his office was, and I kind of had known his schedule just from working with him a little bit. And so I pretty much took money and got my best friend's mom to help me get a Greyhound ticket. And I jumped on the Greyhound to Long Beach and showed up at this guy's house and was like, look, I need to work. I want to do all these things. He said, you can't work with me if you don't have a GED. I said, okay. So I got my best friend's mom to essentially help me sign up for classes, pretend to be my mom, which I look back now and I'm like, what was I thinking? But
And interesting that she did it, that she was willing to do it
yeah,
for you.
well, she knew I've known them for 30 years now. So she kind of saw and knew everything in the same time.
And so when you
But
left, you didn't tell your mom you were leaving. You just got
no,
your friend's
up
mom to
and
help
gone.
and left and didn't tell your parents. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't tell anybody. I just up and left. And I ended up being, I say homeless, but it's like I was bound like couch surfing and kind of
Mhm.
sleeping where I could a little bit while I got my GED. Like, and then got my GED and
How long
went
did
back
that
to the
take
guy's house
you
within a week or two. And
from the time
it
you
took me
left
about 2 weeks
home?
to kind of
Oh,
to the
wait.
time I started working, about 2 weeks. Like I
Wow.
just
Okay.
for about 2 weeks I was living in the streets of LA, just making sure that I could just live what I could. And my friend's mom helped the whole time. When they had the extra money, they paid for a hotel room, made sure I had food every night. Like they did
Wow.
everything they could to help from a distance. And today I call her my other mom. That's my adopted mom. Like that's
Yeah.
their family.
Yeah.
And and I ended up showing up at his house after 2 weeks with my GED in hand and was like, okay, here I go. I'm ready to work. And he's like, well, you're not 18. We're gonna have to lie. We're gonna have to tell everybody you're 18. And I was like, nope. Like I have my GED. I'm an adult. Like this is the deal. And I ended up working with him, and I traveled throughout the U.S. teaching in school systems, hip hop and ballroom to kids, and teaching them to respect each other and history of music that I was learning all at the same time. Um, and again, that comes. I give that to God because He took me from the struggles I had at home and trying to help with my sisters, which I was sending money to at that time. Like all my money was going back to them.
Mhm.
Um, he took me from that position and now put me in a position to influence kids, especially in inner city LA where they were struggling and poverty was kicking in and things like that. And it's like here I am at a 16-year-old kid, and I got, you know, third, fourth, fifth graders looking up to me now, like, oh, you're doing this, like that's really cool. I can do it. And it really changed my lifestyle from being struggling and dealing with abuse, physical, verbal, mental, emotional, sexual, to now being a role model for kids that may be going through the same thing. And it's like, wow, what do I do? Um, and that kind of strained out my life. And that was, really where I kind of found God the first time.
Okay, real quick. So this guy who the instructor, did
Hmm?
he make you like get permission from your mom or anything, or he just went ahead and let you travel with him and
No, he just let me travel with them. At that
wow,
point, I had my GED or diploma, whatever,
right.
and
He let
he
that be
kind
good
of
enough
just
and yeah.
that was good enough. And he kind of was just like, "You're graduated. Like, there's nothing we can say." Like,
Well, also, so was he a Christian?
no. So he was actually Catholic.
Okay.
Um,
So I'm just wondering if
and
he did he help in the process of not only getting your life, on track through this amazing opportunity to teach dance and influence and all that, but did he direct you towards God at all, or was that something that began happening on your own?
yeah, no. So he took me to mass on Sundays, for with the Catholic Church, and that's kind of where I started.
Hmm.
And we and I went with him every single Sunday. It was like no matter what city we were in, we were teaching kids on Sunday. It wouldn't matter if we were traveling from one city to another. We always found a church and we always went to a mass. And that kind of was my first introduction spiritually to God in a whole.
Hmm.
And then I was like 15, 16, and I that was probably going on for 2 years till I was about 17. Um, in that point. And then we brought on this gentleman by the name of Victor. Now, Victor was a Christian and he was an ordained pastor. And he worked at a youth group, but he taught dance with us on his free time when we were in LA. And he was like, come to church with me. And I was like, okay. So I went to church with him. And that's really when I became a Christian. I kind of listened to him preach the way he talked. Then I felt a different connection. I felt, and I'm not putting down Catholicism. I don't, that's, I just felt a different connection. And I kind of felt like this is where I'm supposed to be. There, all of a sudden, there was like a blanket of comfort around me in all areas.
Well, and don't you think Christian churches, as opposed to Catholic churches in general, they facilitate more relationship with God as opposed to Catholicism, which can be a little bit more ritualistic and more less relational.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of times, like modern day, like, and even postmodern, I guess you would say, is like Catholicism is a big part of Christianity. Like, we all kind of tie in, but Victor, the way he talked, the way he built the connection, the way he wanted to mentor me, and it wasn't just at church, like in personal life, we'd be sitting at the dinner table. It was the first time I prayed over food.
Mhm.
And I was like, what is this? But and it made me feel different when I would eat. And when he talked to me about, the devil wanting the same relationship that God had with you, it all started to make sense. And then the explaining the whys of the Bible and why we why God wanted to sacrifice his son and why he wants us to walk in this path, and all these little windows of and jewels of information. And then being outside of that and him talking to me at that point, he was like the dad that I didn't have at that point. So
Mhm.
Victor, which I still talk to today,
Mhm.
was the guy who, at the end of the day, he had the birds and bees talk. He had like the don't be late. This is, respect. You have to respect your elders. You have to get off the couch when they come in, sit on the floor, whatever it is. Like he did those things for me in a lot of ways.
Okay, so something
And
I observe in you is that what you do with excellence. Yeah, as
Mhm.
you know, I really like you a lot, and I think you do a great job at Allegretto, and I think you would do a good job wherever you are. But did he teach you that? Were you just kind of always that way? Did your grandpa teach you that? Like, where did
No,
your work ethic and your sense of excellence come from?
my grandpa taught me a big part of that before he passed. Like he used to tell me, work like you own it, one day you will. And so I took that work ethic with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Victor, I watched him change, and I watched my grandpa work 16, 18-hour days. My grandma never worked a day in her life. They had 9 kids, and he did all of it.
Well, so she did
And
work.
then
If she had 9 kids, she was
the
working her butt
kids,
off too,
she was working at home.
in a
Yeah,
different
she
way.
worked a
Yeah,
lot at home.
yeah,
Yeah. But then Victor taught me so much more of the spiritual aspect of life and how to bring that to my physical world. And then he was the guy that taught me the importance of what my grandpa was trying to tell me before he passed away with work ethic. And that was like if you're earlier on time, if you're on time, you're late. If you're late, don't come to work. And
yeah.
so I remember the first time I was late picking Victor up because I had the work truck. Um, he had me get in the passenger seat and he drove me from his house halfway to the work site, dropped me off at a bus stop, gave me $3, and was like, "You can either use this to get to work or you can use this to get home, but you're never going to be late again." And he left. And I sat there for, I don't know, 10 minutes, Rachel. And I was like, do I go to work? Do I go home? Like, what is he trying to teach me?
Mm.
And I had just at that moment kicked into what Victor had been teaching me. And I sat and prayed. And I just asked the Lord, like, give me guidance. Like, what am I supposed to do? And it was like almost as soon as I opened my eyes, the bus coming up was going directly to the work site, like that space. And I kind of just was like, okay, that's my no, that's my cue. Like I'm supposed to go to work.
Mhm.
And I met him there. And when I walked in, he goes, "Do you know why I did that?" And I said, and I was 17-year-old kid. So here I am, like, I'm hot headed. I got a temper. I'm like, you hate me, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I did it because I see the excellence and the potential in you, but you have to see it in yourself first. If you don't validate yourself, nobody's going to validate you. If you don't have that conversation with God, like he's always talking to you, but you have to choose to listen. And I kind of took me a second to realize what he was trying to really teach me and show me.
Mhm.
And it kicked in. And I was just like, oh man, like, and I apologized every day after that. And to this day, me and him will have dinner or we'll have a conversation. And then that's the story that always comes up is me getting left at a bus stop and showing up to work and then working the rest of the day. And from there, it was everything. Like he has been the best mentor spiritually. But he was my first introduction to Christianity, God. He made sure every night when I was on the road, didn't matter what city I was in teaching, he would call me and we would read verses out of the Bible and we'd go over it. And that was kind of like my first introduction.
Hmm.
And then,
What a remarkable person to invest in someone like that. That's true discipleship. That's kind of rare.
yeah,
So that's remarkable. God bless Victor.
super, super. And he still to this day works as a pastor in the church. He's down in Fruindale area, but he's at a church. He's an ordained minister. He's a minister now. He has his own church. He's running a youth group. Like he's doing so much more in his life. And I think it started with him it was like God's test for him in that moment. Like, can you mentor this kid who had seen so much abuse and things at home?
Mhm.
And can you get him on the path? And if you can do that, then we're going to open up these doors for you later.
Mhm.
And I ultimately decided that I wanted to go back home for a little bit, right around 18. So I went back home. I, unfortunately, in that moment, I took a job, and the person that hired me on for this job, ultimately sexually assaulted me. And so
Oh.
here I am. My strength in God is being tested again. Like I
Mhm.
went through it as a kid. I now leave this area where I'm mentoring kids. I come back home for a little while to take on some other work and be there with my family. And then here I am, I get assaulted. And
Mhm.
now 17, 18-year-old male. And all I could do is blame myself. Like, what did I do wrong? Why did I leave? Why did I do all these things? And again, my spirituality, my faith in God was questioned. And
Did you tell anyone about it at the time?
no, I held that in
Yeah, which is what
probably,
most people do.
probably for about 2 years. I held it in. Um,
It's actually not very long, especially for men.
no,
A lot of
yeah,
men will not share. There are so many men that have been sexually abused that are they feel so much shame about it, even though they shouldn't,
yeah.
because the
No, I
enemy
felt that
does
was,
that, right? So I'm glad
yeah.
you 2 years is actually not that long to
No,
share it.
I
So I'm
felt like it
glad.
was my fault. It was my fault. And then I had to hide myself. So I wore a hat every day. I had a sweatshirt on, a jacket or something. Like I was hiding who I was.
Hmm.
Um, and Victor at that point would still just text me or call me to check in.
Hmm.
And he called me one day, and I don't know what it was for him. Um, but I knew for me it was God. There was no way that Victor called me to ask me how I was doing on this day. I was having like a really like a mental breakdown.
Hmm.
Um, and I told him what happened, and he left where he was at. And at that time, I believe he was in Arbuckle, which is north of here, quite a ways. And he made the 6.5, 8 hour drive um
Wow.
to me
Wow.
and came and prayed with me and
Wow.
sat with me and just gave me a shoulder to cry on, but prayed for me ultimately and
And
gave me the comfort.
sacrificed,
Yeah,
sacrificed
sacrifice.
to
Yeah,
show the love of Christ. That's amazing.
yeah. And then he's the one that told me, he's like, look, God's going to give you armor in your life. The experiences, things you go through, he's going to take those things. He's going to build an armor of faith around you. And those things are going to help other people later on in life. And I, I understood what he said, but I didn't understand what he was saying because I was so young.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward, I'm 19 years old. I'm living life. I'm working. I go back to the dance company. Everything is good. I'm working with Victor. I'm traveling. Everything's fine. My sisters are at this point grown. Everybody's out. Like life is turned around. 20 hits. I come home from work and I get served child support papers. And I find out I have a 2-year-old son that I didn't know about. And so all of a
Oh.
sudden, again, my faith was like, what the hell's going on? Like,
Hmm.
why?
Hmm.
Um, but in that moment,
You
I
had
didn't
no
struggle
idea
as much.
that you had a
No,
son?
I had nothing. I had nothing. I didn't even know he existed. I didn't know anything. I just got these papers and I was like, I'm not paying anything. I don't even know if he's mine. Like, what is this? Um, and so I called his mom at the end of the day. Um, and this is really like my faith. I struggled, but I didn't break. I knew I was like, okay, I made a promise to myself as a young kid. Like if I ever had kids, I would do everything I could because I didn't know my dad, and we'll get there, but I didn't meet him. I didn't know him. I watched what happened with my sisters, and I was like, I'm never running from this situation ever.
Hmm.
So as soon as I got the paperwork, I got on the phone and I said, hey, I received these paperwork. Um, I want to do a DNA test just because I'm finding out 2 years later, but I want to meet him. I'll be in town this weekend. And his mom ultimately said yes. And Rachel, I'll tell you what, if this, I knew God existed, but I didn't know the depth of the connection that he could create and he would give you as a parent with your children. I
Hmm.
got out of the car. Here's this 2-year-old little boy standing at a screen door of a house. He's never seen me. And as I get out of the car and I'm walking up, the first thing that comes out is Dada.
Hmm.
And I just knew. I was like, nope, there's no way that this kid would never have seen me, call me dad, and know that I'm his dad. And
Did he look like you? Could you,
so
when
I
you
kind of
saw him, did you feel like there was a resemblance
a
or?
little bit, yeah. Like I knew he was mine. But I knew in that moment too. I said, in that very moment, I said, it doesn't matter if this test comes back negative or positive. He's mine or he's not mine. I'll be his dad, and I'm going to take him on because every kid should have a father in this world. Um, and I'm a strong believer in that. Like I will treat every kid like they're my own. I'll meet your kids and I'll be like, that's my kid. Like I treat everyone, and I think that comes from my faith because as a dad now, um, the reason we're called fathers is because God wanted men to share that name with him in order to influence and protect and provide and be the lion and the lamb for families the way that he was for us, and be that guider and that protector the way he is for us now. And that's why men share that word father, is to walk in his image. And I knew in that moment I was gonna be his dad no matter what happened. But ultimately, test came back positive. So my son Kyle.
Were you furious with your ex-girlfriend for not telling you for 2 years?
I was mad initially, but at the same time, I've always been one to say you have to look back and self-reflect a little bit. That was something Victor really taught me, was like this self-reflection. Look at yourself. Like, he used to tell me all the time, like, don't be mad at people for breaking boundaries. Be upset with yourself for not holding them. And I never understood it until later on in life. But I was mad at her initially, but then I realized, like, well, what if she didn't really know? What if for some reason she didn't know it was me, or she thought it was someone else, or um, she was going through whatever struggles mentally or physically or whatever it was, and she was embarrassed by her decisions or whatever. I didn't know what she was going through. And
Well,
I
that's
couldn't
very
hold that against
gracious.
her.
That's very gracious of you. That's very forgiving, because, man, I'd be pissed.
Well, I couldn't hold it against her because at the same time, like, I knew I had been active with this person. Even after we separated, why would I, if I could have followed up and been like, hey, it's been a couple months, I haven't talked to you, but we were active, sexually, like, is there anything going on? Like, should I know? Like, I could have on my own reached out at some point and asked questions, and I didn't.
Okay.
So can't place all the blame on her because I also didn't follow up in life.
Okay. Well, oh, hold on. You're frozen.
Yeah.
Sorry, we had a little technical difficulty, but we are moved to the car where we are good to go now. Okay. So picking up where we left off, you took responsibility for your son. He's 2 years old. You now have a son, and you didn't hold it against your ex-girlfriend. God bless you for your graciousness. And then what?
Court battle started. And at this time I was still with the dance company, traveling all over the US. So I didn't have an established visitation. And ultimately what judge ruled on at first was every other weekend, and his mom had to go everywhere I went with him so that I could build a relationship with him. And that was supposed to be done for 6 months. And that's what we did. So anytime I was traveling to a different city to teach, on my weekends, I had to come back, pick them up, take them back out, do my job, spend time with them in a hotel or whatever was going on, and then take them both home.
Wow.
Um, that definitely made it hard,
Yeah.
personally.
Yeah.
And then I was able to build my relationship with him. And after 6 months, I got him every other weekend by myself. And then it became every weekend. And then at that point, I had him every weekend. I was working for the dance company. We were traveling, made getting back really hard. And so I had to face the first like financial personal decision I've had in my life, which was leave this good paying job and your dream and doing what you've been doing since you were 17, 15 years old, 16 years old, to come be a full-time dad and be at home all the time. And have a
Lord. Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. We've had multiple technical issues, but that's because I know that the Lord really wants this testimony to get out, and the enemy is opposing it, which is always a good sign. So we are encouraged, and we'll continue. So you took responsibility of your son. You did not hold it against your ex-girlfriend, and you began. So go ahead and pick up with what happened when you first got every other weekend partial custody stuff.
Yeah. So, first 6 months, I had him every other weekend. She had to come with us everywhere we went. Had to stay the night at my house or the hotel, wherever I was at, she had to be at. Then I got every other weekend, and then I got every by myself, and then I got every weekend. And so then it became a decision. Do I keep traveling with the dance company? Do I keep teaching? Do I come home or find a home closer and settle down? find somewhere to be closer to him and take maybe less money.
And leave a dream job. Leave a dream job.
Leave a dream job
Yeah.
where I felt like I was really helping kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left and I came home, back towards Paso Robles. They lived in Atascadero at that time, only 15 minutes south of here. And I took a little job at a pizza place. It's kind of my first little gig. And had him every weekend. And I got to see him. And then he was 2 years old. That's probably till about 3. First 6 months I did with her. 6 months after that, I got every other weekend, and then I got every weekend. So by the time he's 3.5, I have him by myself. I'm living in Paso, doing my stuff. I'm working at a pizza shop and a tire shop at the same time. So, like, in the morning I'm working and I'm doing pizza, and at night, in the afternoon, towards the evening, I was working changing tires. And I did that a lot. And then 4 years old hits, and I get a call one night like, hey, I don't want to be a mom anymore. Can you take him? And I was like, sure. I'll be right there. And I drove out, and when I got there, you could tell this was almost premeditated. She had everything broken down. His bed, all of his clothes were packed. Everything was ready to go.
Wow.
And when I saw him in that moment, I felt something where I was like, don't take anything. Just get your son, get Kyle, and get out of there. Just leave everything else behind. And so
do you know why at this point, why you felt like you shouldn't take anything?
The energy that I felt was just so negative coming off of all that stuff. And I didn't find out till later on that night. So I picked Kyle up, went to the store, bought brand new clothes, got a new bed, got everything from my house ready to go. And throughout that entire day, anytime he sat down in the car seat and he sat down, he screamed, Rachel. He was crying and screaming all night long. And that night, anytime he went to the bathroom, everything, he cried, he screamed. So I finally gave in and went to the ER, and the doctor told me there that my son's rectum was ripped.
Oh,
and that
no.
It was from sexual assault.
Oh my
gosh. So here I am with the 4-year-old boy who had been sexually assaulted. We got the cops involved. We got everything. Came out that it was his uncle who did that. His uncle ended up spending time in jail for it. And that ultimately led to me having sole custody and the parental rights of his mom removed and things like that.
Wow.
But this goes back to what I said earlier, that God built you with an armor of faith and an armor of your experiences to help other people. So at 4 years old, that trauma kicks in a little bit right there. You have the nightmares, you have those things. But it's not till later on in life that those memories and that trauma kind of sneaks in on you as you get older.
Yeah.
And because I had went through it, now I'm able to help him. And I was able to guide him as he got older and explain what happened and explain why he doesn't have a mom and why he doesn't get to see his mom's side of the family in that aspect.
Now, 4 years old is old enough to kind of know what's going on. So like that day when you first picked him up and she was just giving him to you, what was she saying? What was she saying to him? Like, she was like, bye, you're going to go be with dad now. Like what, because at 4, you kind of kids ask questions. Wow.
Pretty much was just like, you're going to go live with your dad. I can't be a mom right now. And I ultimately think, that what I felt in that energy was God saying like, hey, he's going to face this trauma. These things have negative memories. These are going to be triggers for him in his life. Like you're taking him, start him over, give him the guidance.
And all fresh start, new stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Because his mom, later on, it comes out like his mom, throughout the investigations, like his mom had known about the sexual assault.
Oh my gosh.
So her way of getting rid of it, hiding it or moving past it was to, hey, do you want custody? I can't be a mom no more.
Do you think it's possible even even though like it's a little hard for me to not be judgmental of a mom that willingly at 4 years old gives her kid away like that, but do you think in a way she was even trying to protect him?
Yeah.
She knew she couldn't protect him where he was.
Yeah.
Like she wasn't going to be able to. Like so she gave him to you.
Yeah. I ultimately think at the end of the day, so this is another spot where I never gave any judgment, because the maturity it took to sit there and have to make the hardest decision to give up your own child had to be respected. Even if why was wrong, you made a decision to protect him, or you made a decision that you weren't capable to be a parent, which is something a lot of people don't do. And so in that aspect, always give respect. I've always taught my son, like when he asks questions or if he gets mad as he got older, you know, I hate her, blah. It's like, hey, you can be upset, but you can't hate somebody who ultimately made the decision that they thought was going to give you the best life possible. And if you're happy with where you're at in life, you don't get to hold that judgment.
Yeah.
But during that moment is when I finally had a period of grace, and my estranged relationship with my mom had to be repaired, because now I'm a single dad of a 4-year-old son who I had just found out been a victim of sexual assault. And I had no one to lean on in this area. And I made that call to my mom, who I hadn't talked to in, from 16 to here I am at 20 years old. So there's a 4-year gap of no conversation with my mom at all. And I had to call to ask for help because I didn't know what to do. And one of our first conversation was really hard. It was a lot of blame game. Like, you didn't come look for me when I left. You didn't help me. You put me through these things. And ultimately, I was looking for her to take responsibility for what we went through as kids. But at the same time, I had Victor, who was like, hey, are you happy where you're at in life? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, then you can't be mad at your mom, because whatever happened, it put you here. So instead of having hatred towards her, have humility and grace towards her, because if she hadn't been the way she is, God wouldn't have guided you into the path you are in now. And having him with me really helped me rebuild my relationship with my mom. And
so at that point, was your mom any different? Had anything changed in her life at that point, or was she still?
Yeah. No, my mom had like 180 in life. She met her current husband now. They've been together almost 20 years. Going on, I think it's 18, 19 years old. Now going on 20. And my mom had given up everything at this point. There was no more drugs, no more alcohol. She had been with Bobby, who's my stepdad, living with him, turned everything around, helped my sisters, got them towards school, helped finish school, helped my youngest sister get into college, got both of my sisters a car. Like, my mom had decided to help do all those things.
So she had changed a ton, but during that initial reconciliation, did she take responsibility for the past, or what? Okay.
No, my mom never took that responsibility at that moment. So I made that decision, like, okay, me and her aren't going to build our relationship. But she has every right to know her grandson. So it'll be for the grandkid only. Me and her don't need to have a relationship. And I kind of lived that way for a little bit, even though I had that craving to have my mom in my life and that help and that person. And I ended up, as he got older, 4 years old, I then met my daughter's mom. Her name is Raina. I met her and ultimately ended up getting married and then having my daughter. And then that's what brought me and my mom super close, got her at the wedding. Once she was there with us at the wedding, we were able to have like a heart-to-heart conversation. And then my mom took the responsibility of everything. It was like at the wedding day, as she's giving her speech, like, look at where you are now. I'm so proud of you. I'm sorry for the things I did in the past. I'm sorry that I wasn't there. I'm sorry I wasn't a mom. Thank you for giving me a chance to be a grandma. Thank you for giving me a chance to take care of these things, and rebuild what I lost. And that really fixed a lot for me and her, to where we went from super distant, only talking for the kids, to how we are today, which is I call every day. I drive out. She's actually here at my house right now, to see my son who came back from military academy. So it's like all of it is full circled.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm raising my daughter, and my son. I'm married. I'm enjoying life.
Does your mom know the Lord?
She does now. So my mom, a big part of that was me and her reconnecting, and then me being like, look, let's go. We don't need to do therapy if you don't want to do therapy and squash the trauma and talk about it. But we do need to sit down with a pastor and talk forgiveness and grace and these things. And once again, Victor's that person who put me there and gave me that advice and helped me out in that aspect. And when I was going through my divorce, my mom was the first person to help me out. I had walked away from my divorce with everything, Rachel. I gave everything to my ex. I said, you can keep the cars, you can keep the house, you can have everything. All I want is a backpack, some clothes, a couple pairs of shoes, and I want just a visitation with my daughter to never change. Like, I just want it. And that's how we left it. And here, now my mom and Bobby, who I've been estranged with, my mom's coming out. She's picking me up. Ultimately, the vehicle she showed up with, they had bought for me, and that was a car that they had helped me get. And I moved into their house with my son, and then I had my visitation with my daughter, and they were helping me with the gas as I got on my feet to go do my visitations and visit. And we were going to church every Sunday, and I really had a chance to really connect with my mom through that traumatic experience, again, of divorce. And now I lost visitation with my daughter. And I lived my life that way for a long time. And I got into restaurants, which ultimately led me to Allegretto, where I had a chance to meet you and Marshall. And
okay, so let's pause right there real quick.
Yeah.
So I just love your whole story of, like, as I said, there's so many parents that are hurting, that are estranged from their kids. There's so many kids that are hurting, that are estranged for sometimes good reasons. Like, sometimes parents have done things where kids have to set some boundaries and get healthy, and sometimes get away in order to get healthy. And
yeah,
and you did that. And I think you're a remarkable person, but I think that at such a young age to have, first of all, I think one of the first signs of God just so loving and taking care of you was the fact that when you ran away to this and found this dance teacher, that he
Yep.
actually took you in and helped
Yeah.
you, and that he wasn't abusive, and did do right by you, and take care of you, and then led you to Victor and all the different people that he
Yeah.
that he led you to. And some people watching right now, their kids are still away. They're not talking to them. They don't know where they are. And I think that this is just so hope giving to those parents that, you may not know where your kid is, but Rory's mom didn't know where he was either. And
No.
keep praying for those kids, and kids pray for the parents. If, in this situation, it was really more that your mom had done things that made it where you had to leave, right? So
Yeah.
either side of that equation, whether you're the kid or the parent, find hope in Rory's story and pray for the ones that are away. And we do, as people know, I've been saying, I pray for our kids. I pray every morning. I call the prodigals back home. I call the parents' hearts and the children's hearts to be turned back towards each other. And that's exactly what your testimony is an example of. And that's why I wanted you to share that part of it. But now, go ahead.
I think like what both sides have to do is kids have to be able, if they're the ones who are upset at mom and dad and that's why they left and they're not talking to them, is they have to be able to communicate to mom and dad exactly what they think they need to heal. If it's, I need you to take responsibility for this moment or these things, communicate it. And if your parents don't listen, there's a reason why, and they'll get there. And they need to maybe sit on that. You got to plant that seed, but you got to tell them what exactly it is you need. And if the parents who stepped away from the kids for whatever reason, the kids did something, back again, it goes back to just telling that child exactly what you need, like, you know, and reminding them, I love you. But at the end of the day, if you're not talking, you have to understand at the same time. And one thing I looked at because of Victor was like, God sacrificed his son for all of us. So if I'm sacrificing my relationship with my mom in that moment to heal and get better, I get to then come back as a new son and a better version of myself.
And she came back as a better version of herself.
She came back. And I think there's a big reason for that. And like earlier, we talked about men being created in the image of God by using the same word as father. But in life, like the reason God created birds and snakes and those things and fish as their first animals, because they get to go through these different parts of life and they get to have different rebirths. You know, as a bird, you are a bird, and then that bird births an egg, and then you live your life in the egg. And then you get birthed out of the egg and you become your own bird again. And so a lot of times we start out in one part of our life, and that's the egg. And we kind of are going to struggle and get through that. But you crack the shell, now you get your second life. And we take that second life for granted sometimes. And it's like, hey, if you're in a part right now where you are estranged from your mom or your brother or your sister or estranged from a family member in general, just wait till the egg cracks. They'll come out of it, or you'll come out of it, and you get to have that second life where you get to rebuild that relationship. You know, and that's
encouraging.
Why those things are there. Mm-hmm. You know, I got to come out on the other side of it with my mom, and then with my son. My son struggled a lot in school and a lot of things, and got in trouble. We dealing with the cops, dealing with all these other things because of the trauma and all these other stuff he went through. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, he made a decision with me to go to military academy, and he didn't want to do that. Like, he was so mad that was an option. And it was, but now if you were to get him on the phone and talk to him, he'll tell you how grateful he is that he got to go and the structure and those things. And he hopes that me and him can move past our struggles and what we went through as father and son to be better and have a better relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's that same thing. Sometimes you need that. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yes. Well, praise God for your beautiful testimony of reconciliation and the hope that gives to everybody. So now I want to switch because I know there's so many things we could talk about because there's even more to your life and your story that is remarkable. But I want to switch to the testimony you shared about the owner of your apartments coming into Allegretto. And so actually I had met Rory before, but the first time we really, really talked and had an in-depth conversation was he was wearing a bracelet. And I said, what is your bracelet? And you said, it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right?
Yep.
And then you said, and can I share with you the testimony of what God has done in my life? I'm like, yes, it's my favorite thing to hear is what God has done in people's life. So you went on to share this story. And so let's start at the beginning of you work a lot. You're a hard worker. You work all the time. You work long hours. You give 150% to your employer, and the cost of living has gone through the roof the last few years, in case people haven't noticed, and you were at a place where you needed a raise. It was appropriate. You earned it, and you went and asked for it. So go ahead and start at that part.
Yeah, well, it all ties in. As me and you shared, like my daughter went through her own struggles, so I was struggling personally, which led to me struggling at work. But I've always been, as you said, I work a lot. So I was a workaholic. And I was putting in all these hours as an outlet to my own personal life frustration. And at that point, things have started to get better little by little. Work's coming along, but it is time. I've been there for a little over 4 years now, and it was time to have that contract negotiation. And so I've been talking to ownership about getting my pay raise, and we had been going back and forth on numbers. From August all the way up to March or so. And it has just been nonstop of back and forth. And this is what I think I'm worth. And this is them telling me what I'm worth and what they're willing to give me. And we ultimately got to a point where I said, okay, you have 30 days. If at the end of this 30 days on the first of the month, we don't have an agreement, I'm going to walk away. Mutually, I would like to separate. no bad blood, but we just aren't going to come to an agree. If we can't come to an agreement after this many months, like,
Yeah.
maybe
It's a long time to negotiate.
I'm not building animosity. Yeah, I'm not building animosity. You're not building animosity. And I had talked to them that day, gave them my notice and everything for 30 days. And so that day, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulder because I finally had just kind of drawn a line in the sand. Like, okay, here's my boundary. Now I'm going to stand it.
Mm-hmm.
And a gentleman came into the tasting room, and he was talking to one of my staff, and Marissa is a very spiritual Christian. She is church 3 times a week. She is on the board of her church. She's doing events. She goes to reach. She is everything. And I don't think this story could take place without her being the one in the tasting room that day. Like, when God lines all of his angels up, this is what I'm talking. Like, this is that moment. And so Marissa's in the tasting room. Ron walks in, and Ron's talking to her and is like, "Oh, I'm here for work." And she's like, "Oh, what do you do for work?" And he's like, "Oh, I own Dry Creek Apartments, which is where I live." And she goes, "Oh, my manager lives there." And I say it wouldn't have happened without her there, because a lot of other staff would have been like, "Oh, that's really cool." And they wouldn't even thought about me in that moment. But obviously I think God was talking to her like, "Oh, this is important." So she says, "I live here." He asked her to call me out. He wants to talk to me. I come out. I'm talking to him. And he is like, "What's your name? What apartment are you in?" And I give him the information. And then he's kind of like, "Well, do you have any feedback? Is there any negatives? What can we do to get better?" And obviously I'm on the clock at work, and I am just grateful to have a place to live at this point. And I knew I'm going through these contract negotiations. The last thing I needed was to make the owner of the apartment complex mad. And next thing you know, like, now I don't have a place to live. And he ultimately wrote everything down and did his own investigation to what apartment I was in and everything. And
so, because you didn't give him any feedback, you were like, it's
any
good.
details, no feedback, nothing. I was like, "Nope, everything is great. The girls at the front are amazing. The landscaping is great. My neighbors are awesome." Like, I just was super professional, no feedback, zero. And he did his own investigation, found out that I'm in one of the last few unremodeled apartments on the complex site. And so I get a knock on the door from management in the morning, and they're like, "Oh, we're here to do a walkthrough. Ron wanted us to look at your apartment." And so then I'm really stressing, and I'm sweating bullets. Like, why is management here? Why do they want to walk through my apartment? Like, I gave all positive feedback. Like, what is going on? I paid my rent on time. All my bills are done. And afterwards, she had left with a notebook and things that she had written down. And I was like getting ready for work. I was getting ready to leave. And right as I get ready to leave for work, I walk out to get in my truck, and here's management again. And she's like, "Hey, so Ron wants to remodel your apartment a little bit. We can't do a full remodel because you're still living there, but we want to get new tiles, new cabinets, our new tiles in the kitchen and the bathrooms, new toilets, new showers. We want to get you new cabinetry and new refrigerator, all those things in your apartment. and we'll shampoo the carpets, we'll repaint everything, like, but we're going to do it in moderation." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you so much. I appreciate that." And then they were like, "Oh, by the way, Ron wants to lower your rent." So here I am paying $2,400 in Paso, 2-bedroom apartment. 600 square foot. Like, it's tiny.
It's 2 bedrooms and it's 600 square feet.
600 square feet. Yeah, they're tiny.
Oh my goodness.
Tiny.
Okay.
Tiny. Yeah. And then they say, "Ron wants to take you from $2,400 a month to $1,900 a month."
Unheard of.
Yeah. And I was like, "Oh my God, like, you don't have to do that." And they were like, "Nope, we're going to do the remodel. We're going to do this. Ron loved you. He loved your work ethic. He appreciated you, like, everything." And so I go into work, like, just astonished, just thanking God, so grateful, praying, because I'm in the middle of that contract negotiation. So I don't know what's going to happen. I may have to take a job for less money now. And so I was so grateful. And then that day, I get to work, and Ron comes in and has a glass of wine, and we're talking. And I'm telling him how grateful I am, how much I appreciate him. And he hears about my kids, and he's like, "Come have dinner with me and my wife tonight."
So when you say he heard about my
So
kid, was it about your daughter?
my son and my daughter both. He heard both, like a little bit
Okay.
about both, and how my son was at the military academy. And Ron's a retired Navy guy,
Well, I'm just
so
going to throw in
he understood.
Rory. I'm going to throw in this real quick because Rory was dealing
Yeah,
with an incredibly difficult situation with something that happened with his daughter that was very painful, and so he was dealing with that in the middle of this happening. So go ahead.
yeah. In the midst of all this happening, as Rachel said, something critical was like my daughter had been now sexually assaulted by her stepdad. So I also at
Who's
that
in
point,
prison now? Who's in prison now? Praise
he's in
God.
prison. He
Yeah.
is in prison, you guys. But I had felt in a moment like this, I was starting to kind of feel cursed. Like I was like, my son I went through it, my
Yeah.
sisters went through it, my son, now my daughter. But glory to God, like
After this, let's talk about that because I have some information for you
yeah,
about that, about
yeah,
this. So let's talk after this.
yeah.
Okay, so you had that going on for your daughter, and so you're talking with Ron about what's happening with your son and your daughter, and so go ahead.
Yeah. Again, daughter based real quick. Go back to that same thing I said earlier. God gives you that armor to deal with things later. So I don't think I would have been able to be as calm while we went through the investigation and everything for my daughter if I hadn't have gone through it myself as a kid. So the devil put me through that, but God gave it to me as a strength to be able to guide my kids and other people through those situations. But contract negotiation going on. I'm worried about where finances. I'm worried. I'm living at this point paycheck to paycheck with investigations, driving back and forth all the time, taking care of my kid, my son, and my daughter. And Ron had come in magically, remodeled my apartment, lowered my rent. Now he's asking me to dinner with him and his wife. Um, and so at dinner, he's really diving into my two kids and what do they want to do in life? Where do they want to go? You know, what has life been like? And I kind of have shared my story with him a little bit. Um, and we finished dinner. I we took care of everything for them at Allegretto. And now the next morning comes in. Ron comes in. He's getting wine. He's getting ready to leave. He pulls me aside and he goes, you know, after talking to you last night, I don't feel like I did enough to help you. And I'm like, Ron, what are you talking about? Like my apartment's almost going to be brand new. Like my rent's cheaper. That lets me have extra money for my kids. And he was like, no, I don't do enough. I really, really want to bless you. I want to pay off all your credit card debt. And I was like, what are you talking? Like, I can't let you do that. You don't know how much credit card debt I have. It could be 10 grand. It could be $400. It could be 20 grand. And he's like, I don't care what it is. I'm going to pay it off. And I was like, I don't know if I can do that at work. And so he was like, well, there's two choices. Either give me the paperwork to pay it off, or I'm going to leave an envelope of cash at the front desk for you. Um, of what I think a single dad with two kids going through what you're going through would have in debt. But I'm going to bless you. And I didn't know what was going on. Um, and all I could do was just like cry first.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to go talk to management to be like, is this conflict of interest? Like, what do I do? And they were totally fine. They were like, nope, you do what you got to do. Like, this is his gratuity to you. And ultimately, I ended up taking a leap of faith because also, same time, I have to know, like, I'm, I don't have the best faith in people all of a sudden after finding out what's going on with my daughter and her stepdad.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you want my credit card information? Like, how do I know you're not gonna make it worse? Um, and but praying to God and things like that, I give him this information, take a leap of faith, and then that night I got an offer back now from the owner closer to the number I was asking, but just a little bit less. Um, and I ultimately took that offer and said yes. And the reason I said yes is I sat and prayed and I realized like God was saying, hey, this is the place you're supposed to be at Allegro. You're going to meet amazing people. You're going to influence people. You're going to
Like
ultimately
me.
be able to change, help people in some way here.
Hmm.
Don't worry about the finances. I'm going to take care of you in another way. And that other way was him bringing Ron and his wife in and lowering my rent. Um, and he is going to bring in a remodeled apartment for my house to make my kids feel better and I feel better. And then I still get the pay raise and then the credit card date. And it was kind of like,
Hmm.
man, like this is crazy. Like it was God's way of saying, take less money here because you're supposed to be here, but I'm going to bless you in this other field to
Hmm.
help you out at the same time.
Hmm.
And
You must have just felt like such a breath of fresh air to have the apartment redone, your rent lowered, your debt paid off, a raise. Like it's just like,
yeah,
oh,
well, it kind of was that rebirth that we talked about. And it was like my faith in humanity, everything's restored. Because like you hear about these things all the time online, the big, $1,000 tip that changes someone's life or whatever it is.
mhm,
But you don't ever think it's coming to you. And I've always taught myself never to expect anything at a table. No, no tips, don't expect anything but good service and friendships.
mhm,
And I've worked that way. I mean, you've seen me work. So here we are building friendships and all these things, and then this thing happens, and it was like a rebirth, a fresh air. So it's like instantly you start thinking like, this is a fresh start. Okay, so it's like get control of your finances in the bank account, put the credit cards away, cut them up if you have to. Like, don't go back into there because he just helped you out. Like, and that's kind of where I'm at now. It's like everything has kind of flowed into its own path and a restart. It also kind of rebuilt my love of work, and it didn't become so monotonous because it was like
yeah.
your worth now felt appreciated. And God was like, hey, the money is money, you're not going to be buried with it, but these memories of what you have that you get to share on and these testimonies to help other people, that's why you're here.
Mhm,
And ultimately that led to me and you and Marshall having a way deeper conversation,
mhm,
and then sharing that testimony with you, and then me being able to come out to Clovis with your help to do some work stuff, and me and you having lunch and sharing that we had similar stories.
mhm,
And it was kind of like God again saying, hey, she has a different perspective as a female and with what happened to your daughter. And she can offer a little bit of advice as from a female perspective to guide you on how to deal with your daughter's trauma and that relationship.
mhm,
And then ultimately for me, it's like, hey, here's Rory. His has a story that maybe can help somebody, and you have the platform to share that. And
mhm.
so, again, it is God lining up all of those blessings to kind of show people it doesn't matter what relationship the other side wants with you, this relationship will always be stronger.
The light
Uh,
is always stronger than the dark.
absolutely. And that is why I continue to this day wear the bracelet where it all started.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and now I'm in the best place I can be.
And
You
your
know,
son is doing well. He
my son is
just,
doing great. He got to come home for 5 days for his leave, his home leave, and then he goes back to the academy for 2 weeks, and then he gets to graduate with his high school diploma a full year early. Um,
amazing.
and he gets to start his journey of life. Um, so
Well,
it has been an amazing,
he's
been
had a
an
great
amazing journey.
example. Had a great example. And you know what? So many people repeat the patterns of what has happened to them, right? Abuse people, or you don't have a dad in your life, so then you end up becoming a loser dad or whatever. That's pretty common. We all have choices. We can choose to
Yep.
be better than what was done to us or whatever. But you certainly have turned that around and really, in a way, like broken that in your family line, where your kids have had a much different experience with their dad than you had with your dad. And did you want to say anything about your dad? Because you had said, we'll mention that later. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah.
Or-
Yeah. I mean, I ultimately, I'm 37 now. So 10 years ago, 27, years old, I found my dad. I had done all this research based on my conversation with my mom and what I have known, and I did a ton of research, and I found the man that I believe, and to this day still believe is my dad. And I had reached out to talk to him, and my first initial conversation, like that I reached out was like, "Hey, my name is Rory. I know you and my mom were in a relationship at some point, around this time at this place," and kind of gave him some of the background and the evidence that I had found for me to believe that this is my dad. And the next thing I said was, I don't want anything. I don't want money. I don't want any of that. I don't even care if we have a relationship. What I do want you to know is that you have grandkids. Um, if you would like to get to know them, I will 100% respectful of that. If you want to talk to me, the only thing I really truly have to tell you is thank you. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for not fighting, sticking around. Because had you have stayed, who knows where my life had been. And by this point, 27, I had both my kids. I kind of gone through things, and I've kind of realized how great my life is and what I've had with God. So I was just grateful that I had found, but I didn't need that relationship at that point. I've already done it all. And now, if God wanted it to be built, it would be built. And I kind of understood that. And the answer I got back was, "You're not my son. I don't have any kids. Never contact me again. Don't ever call me." And all of a sudden, I was blocked on every version of social media possible from this one person.
Now, had your mom told
And
him,
so,
had your mom had told him back when she was pregnant that she was pregnant with his son? Or
yeah, yeah. And he
okay,
just
so he did
disappeared.
know
He
that. He
just
did.
up and
Okay.
left.
Okay. So it wasn't like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
where you weren't told that you had a baby until
No,
2-year-old. So he did
yeah,
know.
no. He
Okay.
knew, and he chose to leave before I was born.
Okay.
And I held on internally to a lot of hate after that day.
Mhm.
And then later on, I want to say a year later, Father's Day comes around, and my son and daughter give me the best gift, and all their gifts are great, but they give me a gift, and my son tells me like, "Thank you for never leaving me," and I kind of just broke down a little bit because I was like, "Man, like, how can any parent ever think this?" Like, and then again, that armor God gives you. So my dad, I grew up without, and he left. My son's mom left, and I'm able to help cope, guide him, and help him cope. But when he said, "Thank you for never leaving," kind of hit me. So I pinned this very emotional letter to the man that I thought to today I think is my dad, and
You broke up for a second. Did you say you pinned a
wrote it to
letter?
him.
Did you say you pinned a letter to him? Is that what you said?
Yeah, I
Okay.
pinned a letter.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, I wrote a letter to him. Very emotional, heartfelt. Like, look, I forgive you for everything. It is Father's Day, and this weighs heavy on my heart. If you want a relationship, I would love to have one. I don't expect anything out of it, just conversation. And kind of opened up about my kids, about my life, some of the struggles, the things I went through. And I sent that letter in the mail to the address that I had found. But I've never received a response.
Hmm.
But knowing what I went through, knowing God's grace, what God has done for me, what I've taught my kids is like, we don't get to use the negatives of life and the things that the devil has put in our life as a negativity. We don't get to use it as a crutch to why we do bad things. It should be the reason we do good things. As
Mhm.
you said earlier, abuse people hurt, or abuse people abuse people.
Mhm.
It's like, no, you were abused. Now you get to take what you felt, turn that into love, and make sure that the people around you don't get abused. Um, and never use that as a crutch to say, well, I got hurt, so now I'm going to hurt other people.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want that. Um, and so taught my son that and taught my daughter that, like, you went through this, I went through it, but it's no excuse to treat people wrong. Um,
And that you
so
can
grace and
change, you can be different, you can be better. And I think relationship with the Lord is just it can overcome everything. It can
First and
overcome
foremost, is
everything.
without him, we don't get to do anything.
Hmm.
You know, it's a blessing every day to wake up. And I think we take that for granted. We're just, even as young kids, it's like, oh, we're 5 years old and we got to wake up today. And it's just normal for us.
Hmm.
But because we don't realize the negatives. Like we don't realize there is some kid that's 5 years old, they're not waking up today. Um, and I get to do a lot more in my life to help people. So I coach basketball, I coach baseball, I still teach dance off and on for kids. I get to help with my son's friends and my daughter's friends. But working at Allegretto, not only did let me meet you and a ton of other people and help them, and not only did it help me with Ron and my situation, um, but we met a company called Cure for the Kids. Their CEOs are club members for us as well. And I got a chance to fly out to Vegas this year as a wine sponsor and donate wine to their big cancer foundation for kids with cancers. And I did that the first night. We did a big fundraiser. And then the next day, they invited me into the hospital. And I went through a bunch of tests and things like that to make sure I was good prior. But I got to go in and kind of spend an entire day with kids in this cancer unit and see them living life and how they are. And it was kind of like, man, like really takes your life and humbles you in a moment where you're like,
Hmm.
37, I've already lived a big chunk of life. Like some of these kids, tomorrow's not promised.
Hmm.
Um, but I got to be there and be an inspiration to them and now color and laugh and joke and talk to them. But they're really the inspiration, and I wouldn't be there if God hadn't put me where I am now.
Hmm.
Um,
And also,
so
you wouldn't be there had you not made a series of decisions in the right direction. And I say that because I think it's important to acknowledge that like there's decisions to be made. You have chosen to not be bitter. You have chosen to do the things you've done, to work hard, to try to break the pattern that your dad and mom established that were not great, And so you made a series of choices, and everyone has choice. And it's so important because people can feel like, they're stuck in a bad situation. And so they are using it as an excuse or whatever. But everyone has a choice. They can choose differently. They can be better. They can turn to the Lord and seek what is His will for their life, not what have I seen at home or how do I feel right now, but what is God's best for me and how do I find it and pursue it, and then make the choices to align with that
yep.
and create a whole new life.
Yeah. I mean, we all are born the same way. We all learn to walk and crawl and run the same way. It's just what you do with the tools he gives you.
Hmm.
But we all are given the same tools to start,
Yeah.
for the most part. And choices make a big difference. But if you're not going to lean on him to guide you in those choices, you know, another like a better way to put it, I guess, is I was taught like if you don't lead your home, someone else will lead your home. And if you're not leaning on God to lead your home, then the devil's going to lead your home.
Hmm.
And if you're not leading and guiding your kids the way that God is guiding you and you want God to guide them, the devil will. And that is where you find kids and adults that are doing, poor things and they're hurting people and they're doing these things because they're not taking accountability for themselves, but they're also not taking leadership within themselves and leaning on God. And one thing we can all do as Christians, Catholics, anything is give a little grace, but reach out, invite someone to church with you, talk scripture with them, bring the Lord to them. Um, there's something
Or
in the Bible that relates to every problem in the world. Find it, relate to it, pray over them, give them
or
strength.
like what
Like,
you did, like you didn't know that I had a
no,
deep relationship with the Lord already and loved the Lord, but you shared your testimony with me about what Ron had done for you. And I don't know who else you've shared it with, but I assume I wasn't the only person you've shared that testimony with. And so,
No,
the word says
everybody.
we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And so, like, as you share those testimonies, you're continuing to overcome, but then you're also depositing something in me that strengthens my faith to continue overcoming. And so, that's why I really wanted you to share this testimony, because we are so strengthened by hearing a testimony of what God has done in someone's life. And certainly, God has done a lot of amazing things in your life, and
100%.
I'm thankful to Him for what He's done for you. But also, Rory, I'm very proud of you. I'm very
Well,
proud
thank
of
you.
you. You're a good man, and you're doing a good job. And keep going. And God has just a very bright future for you.
Absolutely. I mean, the more we lean on him, the brighter our future gets. The more we pray,
100%.
the more we hear. And a lot of times he puts messages in front of us and we don't always see them. And you can be praying about finances and a job posting comes into your email and you kind of just delete it because you think it's junk mail. But it's like that was his way of saying, like, hey, you need finances. I'm putting a job in front of you. We just don't pay attention to those. If we could slow our lives down and look at those messages, we will all take steps to help share testimonies and deposit the life. And if we are willing to talk to all of our brothers and sisters, we can share testimonies and change lives. You see it now in a world where politically we're so divided, racially we're so divided. And it's like, take time, talk to your brothers and sisters, listen to them, share your testimonies of life, and it'll all sort itself out. Like God will always sort this situation out. But you have to give him that time. And if we don't give him time, then we're giving someone else time. And if that person has your time, you're not gonna take the steps forward you want to take.
Yes. Well, thank you for being willing to do this with me today and for sharing your testimony.
Absolutely.
I know that lots of people have been encouraged by it, and I appreciate it. So I can't wait to come see you again, or you come see us again. But
Yes.
for my audience, I would like to say thank you for watching today. I know you've been encouraged. And if you want to, you can go over to Allegretto Wines in Paso Robles
Yes.
and go into the tasting room and have some wine with Rory. And not just wine, a really good wine.
Right. Yeah.
It's
Well,
really good.
if they mention your show, we'll give them discounts.
Oh, hey, okay, good,
We'll
good,
take
good.
care of them.
Thank you. All right, thank you for watching today. God bless you, and know that you are loved. See you next time.
Thanks for watching The Rachel Hamm Show. If you found value in today's content, would you consider giving a gift? Any amount is appreciated, and the links to give are in the description box below this video. Or perhaps you'd like to buy one of Rachel's products so she can continue bringing content like this to you. All the links to purchase her products are in the description box below the video. To find out more about Rachel, you can go to her website, rachelhamm.com. That's Rachel, Hamm.com. See you in the next episode of The Rachel Hamm Show.